You're listening to episode number 39 of the Indie Film Tribe podcast with me, your host, Angela Matamocha. Welcome. Hi there, good people. Hi. Angela Matamocha here of Indie Film Tribe. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I'm really excited. One of a couple of reasons. First thing first, what I'm doing in this episode is going to be the first of 3 parts. It's sort of an experiment. And those of you that have listened to Indie Film Tribe know every now and again I will do sort of an experimental episode just to sort of see and to see if this sort of resonates with you. And number 2, why I'm really excited, the person I'm interviewing actually was a client of mine about a year ago. She is an actress and she came to me because she wanted to produce her own short film project that she starred in. So just to sort of set this up, I'm going to backtrack real quick about, when was this? This was in August. Okay, so last month, this was just so awesome. I received this email from her, which said, Dear Angela, exactly a year ago, you told me that I have everything I need to produce my own film. See below. This saying has been up on my wall for a year, and today, exactly a year later, I'm in a cab on my way to my film Wildflower film shooting. Thank you. Good people. She sent me this thing that she said. I told her something about that she has the resources that she needs. She has everything that she needs to make this possible. And this is just such music to my ears because I know firsthand how nerve-wracking just the idea of self-producing can be, especially if you've never done it before. You know, I am also an actor. So for me, I was so chicken that the first project I did, I wasn't even in it. So what this lady has done is not only produced it, she starred in it, and she brought her whole team together. She found a writer. She used her resources. Just really, really amazing. So what I want to do here, this is the experimental part. So maybe think about these episodes as a case study. And it's going to be over a period of time. So this is going to be episode number 1. And what I want to focus on today is everything leading up to the shoot and the actual shoot. Then, the next time we meet this lady, I want it to be after post-production to see what she went through in post-production, what she learned, any lessons gained, obstacles, all these sort of things. Then after post-production, I want to talk to her one more time and talk about distribution, how she's going to put her film into the world. Is she going to go to film festivals? Is she going to find an online aggregator? All these sort of things. I just thought it'd be really cool if we can go through the process with her in real time, and any questions that she has, she's of course going to ask me, and together we can just sort of learn and watch as this sort of happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to bring to you Kristi Roosmaa. Did I say it right? Did I say it right?
Hi. Yes, you did. Kristi Roosmaa.
Kristi Roosmaa is an Estonian actress living in New York City. Let me ask you, I don't even know, how long have you been in the States?
Close to 13 years.
Wow, yeah. 13 years.
Yeah, been quite a journey.
I am just so proud of you. And just for everybody listening, she just gave me a quick sort of update of what happened on her shoot. So I didn't even talk to her about this. So I thought, let's do this on air. Okay, first things first. Would you mind telling us a little bit of what Wildflower is about?
So Wildflower is it's a universal story about love and loss. And it's told from a foreigner's point of view. And you know how usually when we speak about the culture, then we talk about the differences. But I absolutely love how the screenwriter, Susan Cameron, tells the story, what unites us culturally. So, yeah.
I love that. And as you know, that is a theme that I am wildly passionate about, unification. All right, so take us from the beginning. How did you decide, like, okay, I just want to star in my own short film and I'm going to do it myself? What led you up to that point? How did you just decide? Because not everyone has the guts to do that. It's tough.
Right. I think it's a combination of several reasons. First of all, I have a story that I feel very passionate about, and I'd like to share it with the rest of the world. But I also think it's kind of like a natural outcome of everything that I've been up to for the past few years. So I belong to a lot of like actors groups, and one of those is Thriving Artist Circle, which is led by Dallas Travers. And it's basically like an actors program where we actors get educated by industry professionals when it comes to PR, marketing, and so on. And in 2016, right? Was that 16 or 15? I think 16, when you were one of our mentors and you taught us about filmmaking. So it's kind of funny, but back then I did not have a desire to produce a film, but I would still attend all of your live Facebook calls and audios, and whenever you send an email, I would read it, because it just, that's my nature. Whenever I'm part of program or workshop, I really, really dedicate myself to that. And you know, I think without realizing it, you kind of planted the seed. And I think probably the industry also influenced, because when I look at the industry now, it seems to me that self-producing is kind of like a new normal. And it's also really exciting to challenge myself and kind of live my life from a place of curiosity and see how far I can push myself. So, and I think that it was about a year and a half ago when I started thinking about it, but I kind of didn't commit back then. And then about a year ago, one morning, I woke up and I just told myself, I'm going to produce a film. And I never let go of that goal.
Can I just acknowledge you for taking the initiative to actually go through the steps in a course or a program? There are so many people that sign up for programs, sign up for courses, all this kind of stuff, and don't actually implement all the lessons that are being taught. So like I know in part of Dallas's course or her TAC program, she does. She has a lot of industry experts come and give actors tips. Not everyone follows through. Although I think within her community, there is a lot more people that are committed. So I just want to acknowledge you and congratulate you for committing and for just going for it. You made a decision, it sounds like, and then boom, you said, I'm producing a film. Let me ask you this. A lot of actors that want to produce think that they have to write it. Some people do write it. Others will get a writer. How were you able to merge the idea of the story that you had and also find a writer and put that together? What did that look like for you?
You know, I knew from the beginning that I'd like to work with Susan Cameron. She's someone I've known for a long time, and I'm not a writer. And right now, I do not have this urge to be a writer. And, you know, producing itself is already a new skill set that I'm learning about, and trying to learn about everything is just way too much. So I decided from the beginning that I'd like it to be written. And I asked Susan, but back then she wasn't available. So what I did, I posted an ad to NYU and Columbia, and ended up reading a lot of like excellent writing samples, but somehow they still didn't feel like a perfect fit for me. And then I decided, you know, just to check in with Susan and see if maybe she's become available. You know, someone once told me, always ask. The worst thing can happen, you'll get a no. But what's the best thing can happen? So I checked in with Susan and she said yes. And then we sat down and I told her about my ideas, and somehow the wildflowers idea just resonated with both of us.
When you came to her with your idea of Wildflowers and you told her that you were going to be starring in it, how did you guys come up with the type of character? Were you strategic at all in thinking, okay, I want to play this type of character? Or was it more so like, I've always wanted to just play this because I just love it? Was there any sort of thought process as a, what the industry needed or how you wanted to be perceived in the industry, or just like what you were really good at playing?
I think that I just told her my story, and that I trust her as a writer. So I just asked her to write the story. Yeah. So I know I never told her like I want to be this and that type of a character, but I just wanted her to have freedom to write the way she would like to write.
Gosh, this is so interesting to me. Okay, so you went to her with a story idea. So you had an idea about what would happen with this character in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And then because she's a writer, did she just say to you, okay, I understand, let me just write it, and then sent you a script? Or did you guys sit down and discuss what would happen within the story?
We sat down and spent a few hours on talking about the story, and again, it's a process, and I think it definitely took a few months before I got the first draft, and at that point I already had the core team set. I had the director and co-producer, and we were kind of all of us were involved with this process, and especially director. And Susan is actually the one who told me about the director, Celine Rosenthal. And it's kind of interesting, but most of the team, I think that I found most of the team through Referral.
That is so true to how things always happen, and I think that's one of the things that people find to be an obstacle when they first start. They're looking for a co-producer, they're looking for a director, a writer even, and really don't know where to go. So what I think you said there is very key. Referral is exactly it.
And I guess you always want to be sure that the people that are working closely, like director and cinematographer, that they would like each other and kind of have the same feel and vision about, So, and then I asked Celine, is there a cinematographer that you would like to work with? And that's how I ended up with a wonderful, young, award-winning French cinematographer, Charlotte Dubray. And the same thing about my co-producer. I just ask around, like my fellow actors, hey, do you know any production company owners who, would be interested in expanding their portfolios and wouldn't be too expensive and are not yet too big? And that's how I found Natalie Schwan. So one thing kind of led to another. But at the same time, I did post a few ads to Mandy, as you suggested, and Mandy's great. I ended up with about 4 or 5 really great PAs that were interested in internship. So, and I also reached out to my community. Whenever I was looking for something or I had a question, I would just post it to our community's private Facebook groups.
For those actors that are listening, I want to make this right here a teaching point, because one of the most difficult things about self-producing actually is making the decision to do it. Because what you'll find once you make that decision, you take that first step, the rest of the elements literally just sort of come into play. You get one person, they know someone that they can then bring on, and then you ask your other person and they'll know somebody else that they can bring on. So honestly, and I'm so glad you said that, Kristi, because I think that's what messes a lot of people up. They're like, well, how am I going to find a director? You can't think about the big picture. Just think about the first person you need to bring on, which sounds like you did. You wanted to work with a writer, a specific writer, and then from there you got your director. From there, a DP, and then you did a bit of posting on your own on Mandy to get PAs, which is fantastic.
And there are a few other things that I kind of did right after I decided to produce. After that morning, I asked myself, why am I producing? What's my goal, and what is that I want to achieve by producing this film? And I just got very specific, because I really do think that the more specific you are, the easier it is later on to make tough decisions and overcome obstacles. And so my goal is to get into the high-level film festivals and be acknowledged for their excellent work, and to get an award, a distribution deal, a network. And I know it's quite a list, but at the same time, I do believe that if you set the bar as high as possible, then it's just going to push everyone to really work hard and do their best. And I think that was one of the biggest surprises, about producing, that how hard everyone worked.
Yes.
It was just remarkable. And the truth is that no one got rich with the project, and there were a handful of people who just worked for credit or experience, or just got inspired of the project. And to see all of it come together, that was just, oh my God. And and the lead group, all of my ladies, because the truth is that I ended up with an all-female international women. So,
wow!
Exciting. They're all so inspiring and hardworking, and I just feel such a enormous amount of gratitude toward my cast and crew, because thanks to them and all of their talent and hard work, I get to tell my story and share it with the rest of the world. So it's just so special.
It really is. It really is. And I think, it's one of these things that's hard to explain until you actually do it, until you're actually getting your team together and working and you're on set. Like, from an actor's point of view, it's such a different experience to be on set where you just show up and, prepare for your character, as opposed to being the one that is responsible for putting together the entire project and playing your character.
Right. Yeah.
Did you feel the weight of responsibility, or did you feel like it was very much a collaborative effort and everyone took on responsibility?
Absolutely. I'm all about teamwork, and this is how I actually set it off. I was very sure from the beginning that I wanted to have a co-producer, and I wanted to be surrounded by people who know more than I do. I know my acting thing.
Yep.
But, I'm a newcomer when it comes to producing, so having a co-producer was so helpful. And I also wanted to be sure that for the shoot days, I get to be an actress, and I get to focus on doing my job as an actress. And you said actually something in one of our sessions that I really followed. You said that have either a really strong director or cinematographer, and well, I'm very happy to say I ended up with both of them being very strong, and there were definitely some very challenging moments.
Always.
And I think that we really tackled all of those thanks to the strong lead group. Yeah.
I'm so glad that resonated with you, because I think a lot of first-time producers might think that if they don't have a huge budget, that they're not going to be able to hire someone with experience. But that's not always the case, as you have found. And the key thing is to make sure your key crew does have some experience. So what I always like to say, if you have a new DP, make sure your director knows what they're doing. If it's a new director, make sure their DP knows what they're doing. I'm not saying it's not possible to have to have a new DP and a new director at the same time. But if it's your first time producing, you definitely want to have someone that is, just not so green. Not so green. It's tougher.
Yeah, and again, one of those things that I wanted to be sure from the beginning, as I said, like I wanted to be sure that I'm surrounded by people who know more than I do, and that's why I wanted to have a mentor. And before even, approaching anyone, I signed up to a class with you. And that was such a great class, like full of inspiration and great advice. And I think that kind of anchored my desire to produce as well. And once you emailed me that quote, I ran to paper saws. I purchased one of those big post-it, stickies, and it's still there. Wait, can you see it?
Yes. Okay. So for those of you listening, she's showing with her computer, her laptop, the paper that's posted on her wall. And I emailed you. That's so crazy. I thought I said that to you. I emailed.
Yeah. And this is exactly what you said. Remember, you have everything you need to make this project happen. Between your talent as an actress, singer, your unique Estonian heritage and resources, you have what you need. And it just resonated so strongly, and it's still up there.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. One of the reasons that makes me so happy is I love that you embraced your heritage. That is so important, and that is one of the things that's going to make you stand out. How many other Estonian projects are out there right now in this country? Not a whole lot.
No.
Not a whole lot. Than you with your talent. And here's the thing, again, for actors that are listening, there is something unique about all of us, whether it's our heritage, whether it was how we were raised, whether it was like where we live. We're all unique individuals, and it's so important. And again, I applaud you for embracing that, Kristi, for just taking in who you are and using that. And not only that, but your resources. So much of independent filmmaking, Mark Duplass talks about this, resource filmmaking. If you use the resources that you already have, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go build a set. And I know, Kristi, we talked about that a lot. You talked about a specific house, and I remember you talking about, and it was an Estonian house. Was that accurate?
Yeah. So, and that was another big surprise, realizing how many friends I have and people who want to help. And I just kind of I've always come from a place of service, and I've never really asked back. And that was the first time when I had to kind of ask help, which is a challenge itself. But, Estonian House ended up sponsoring our movie by not charging us for spending 2 very long days at the Estonian House, which is on 34th Street, 2nd Avenue, very nearby to the Empire State Building. Amazing location, beautiful house. We had a full freedom to use the whole house 2 days in a row. So, and it's one of those historical landmarks. And if I would have had to pay rent, then I just don't think I could have ever pulled it off.
Let me ask you this. Is this because of your involvement with the Estonian community in New York City that you were able to nurture these connections? Is that what you did? You just used the sort of relationships that you already had within the community?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm always a very active member of my community, and just very sincerely, because I care for Estonia and my culture and background. So I love going to that house, and I love my community. So.
You love your, go a little closer to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you are.
I love going to the Estonian House, and I love my community.
So inspiring. I cannot wait to see this. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Okay, so let me just look at my notes. So what I wanted to talk to is about was leading up to the shoot and the actual shoot. So we talked about so far a bit about how you got your team together, that you knew you wanted to work with this writer. Let me ask you this. Was this writer a friend of yours already, or you just heard about her? Like, how did you know this is the woman? For the screenwriters that are listening to us, this might be important for them to hear, or interesting.
She's someone that I've known for a while, and you know, she's a published playwright, someone that I just really respect and appreciate. So I've read one of her plays, and she's also coached me, my acting and my accent. So yeah, it's you know, someone that I know.
Awesome.
She's a friend of mine, you know.
Wonderful, wonderful. So again, I think that speaks to the power of relationships, right? In this business, when we're actors, it's also important to have relationships with up and coming directors, writers, producers, because you never know when we are going to need each other. Same thing for a screenwriter. It's important to know actors and directors and producers.
You know, and it's the same thing about casting. We hosted a few casting sessions, but at the same time we made direct offers. So it's so fascinating to see it, you know, while being on the other side of the table. And in overall, to study from the process as an actress is just so eye-opening. We kind of think, you know, we know because we're once in a while on a set, but the reality is that you don't know until you've actually produced a film. There's so many things that you wouldn't even come up with. There are a lot of decisions that you have to make because of budgeting or because of relationships or who knows, for whatever reason. And yeah, so it's been definitely a great learning process. You know, we asked the actors to submit their materials, and what a variety I saw there. Like, there are people who really submit their reels and headshots and what we were asking for, and then there were actors who would submit 6 links of different short films and not even specify what am I looking there. And the truth is, you know how casting directors say, like, we don't have time, because I actually at that time it got so busy that I did not have time to look through all of those links. The perfect ones really kind of like stuck out right away.
When you say the perfect ones, like from finding your casting, was it something in the way they delivered their package? Was it just maybe one link or one video? Like, how did you know to maybe look at this one, you know, reel as opposed to this person that sent you all these links?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with receiving the email and getting the feel of it, if it's professional or not. And if it's not, then it's already a red flag. And then you go from there if it's, you know, the right look. And it is true that within first 30 seconds or so, you know, and there are so many amazing, talented people out there, and it's not personal. It's really what fits your project and the character. So that was kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And hopefully, and even for actors listening that haven't produced yet, hopefully this will help you to understand that it's not personal, that it really is about fitting into the project. It's not a comment on your talent every time you don't get cast.
Of course, I had a lot of friends who would make comments like, you know, well, let me know if you need an actor or so. And it's kind of like one of those things that you go internally like that, ooh, I wish, but I really do not have anything for your type. And it's kind of like, not that I felt like a bad friend, but it's kind of a little bit of an awkward sensation. You know what I mean?
I do.
Like you want them to be part of your project, but you know there are limits. So
which is why what you're doing is so awesome, because you recognize those limits and you created a project for yourself. No one can say no to the producer.
yes, definitely.
And you wrote it, or you worked with the writer with you starring in mind, and you know the story that you wanted to tell. So again, for actors that are listening and that are maybe thinking about self-producing, what Kristi has done is so smart, because she worked with a writer to help tell her story. And any one of us can do that. Any one of us can collaborate with another writer. It's just a matter of finding the person that you connect with, a person you may know, a referral, someone that knows someone that knows someone. There are gazillion of writers out there. Writers are everywhere. And actors, you can connect with them. You can connect with them. Okay, Kristi, so we talked about leading up to the shoot. And again, what sort of inspired this episode is that email that you sent me on the way to the shoot. So let's go there. You've got your cast together. You've got your crew, your director. How long were you in pre-production before driving to that first day of set?
I think about 3-4 months for sure. Yeah. And you know, in pre-production, you have more time to make decisions and nothing is so urgent. But when you go into the production, it's totally different world. You have to tackle a lot of obstacles and challenges and things that you just don't know to think about ahead of time. And I guess it's a good moment to tell you about the challenges. So the day before, I found out that, first of all, our set designer broke her elbow.
Oh, jeez.
Right? So it's obviously very concerning, but at least I knew that I'm going to have 4 PAs on set, and we can kind of tackle it all together. Definitely, I wish I could have had a set designer, but that's just what happened, and that's life. And you never know, you know. And then even a bigger thing that happened was that we ended up firing our AD the night before.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like shaking just thinking about that.
AD is someone that runs the show, so everyone else could do their job. But so what happened was that this AD was recommended by a friend of mine that I really trust, and he told me how wonderful she is and professional and very well experienced. And it's kind of like another good lesson that we were in between 2 ADs. The one that my friend recommended, very experienced, and then someone that wasn't that experienced but full of passion and very responsive and eager. And we chose to go with the one who's more experienced. And even though there were little red flags along the way, like some flakiness, I think that all of us kind of excused her in our minds that, you know, she's so busy, she has a lot on her plate and a lot of different projects, but she'll be great on set. But the day before, we couldn't get hold of her. She wouldn't pick up the phone, she wouldn't text back, she didn't send out the call sheet.
Oh, dear
which
God.
is probably one of the reasons why we lost a lot of extras. So, and then finally my co-producer Natalie got hold of her around 8:30 p.m.
The night before.
The night before. And she was very disrespectful to her. And I know Natalie, and I trust Natalie, that Natalie is a genuinely nice person who works hard. And then Natalie called me and told me what happened, and that she'd like to fire her. That she'd rather not have someone with that kind of energy and attitude And I trust my co-producer, and I said, go ahead, fire her. So she fired her, and that was 8:30 p.m. the night before. Exactly, deep. So then I called a friend of mine that is a very well-established director, producer, and asked him if he could jump in and just help us in overall whatever we need help with, just to have an extra pair of hands. And the first day was very challenging, and it's also the day that we had the most cast and crew on set.
Shit.
Around 18 crew members, about 7-8 actors, and a few extras. So there was a lot of people to handle. But to tell you the truth, I think that why we pulled it off was because I have strong leaders, and the way the director stepped in, who has extensive background in ADing, was just quite miraculous. And even then I got to be the actress and not the producer. Of course there were a few moments when I just felt like I need to jump in, but I trusted my team that they will take care of everything, and that I get to focus on being actress. And that's what, and we pulled it off. And I mean, that was quite a problem to tackle. But, even though the director ended up juggling between being an AD and director, not even once it felt like something was compromised. It was incredible, and to see all of the team to really step in and really work hard was just it's hard to explain.
You are so, oh man, oh gosh, there's so much. You are so smart to trust your co-producer and allow your co-producer to fire that first AD, because that is one of the worst things on set, is to have someone on set in a leadership role that does not want to be there or has a bad attitude. That is the worst. I've been on sets like that, and that is the worst. It's better to do what you did. Yes, you guys struggled your first day, and you know what? The truth of the matter is, the first day of any shoot is always the toughest. That's the day where you're just getting the oil in the machine, in the wheel, right? Everyone's just kind of trying to figure out the flow, the vibe. It takes a minute, and that first day is always tough. But after that, it starts to move quicker. So let me ask you this. Did you then have a first AD for your second day of shooting?
Yeah, we had someone stepping in for the second and third day. But, we had another surprise on the second day.
This is what you just have to love about filmmaking.
I'm just being very honest,
yes.
About the process. So what happened on the second day, after filming the hardest scene, technically and emotionally, we filmed it for a few hours, and we had to build a dolly, like the racks for the dolly, and do all of that. And once you've done, once you film the hardest scene, I don't know how to explain like the emotion that you have afterwards. You kind of let it go. So I'm having lunch, and I'm really happy with everyone's work, including myself, because I knew that it's going to be a scene that is really, really a hard scene. And then someone comes up to me and says, "We got to do it again." Oh my God. I think that I just stood there for a few minutes. And I even can't tell you how many thoughts I had in my head and what was I feeling. Because you really let go at that point,
You've already done several takes, and you did the one where you nailed it.
Exactly. So
why did you have to do it again?
Apparently there was some kind of a technical issue that was not, that we couldn't see while we were filming. But once we put in the memory card to the computer, it showed up like quite damaged, like red lines all over the screen. So we don't know exactly, was that a camera's fault or who knows what. And at that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then we were not sure, can we restore it or not? And just to be safe. We ended up reshooting, but because of the time restriction, we couldn't build up the tracks anymore for the dolly, and we did the best we could. But definitely it was very, very challenging. And there was a moment when I almost wanted to step in as a producer and say, what the heck just happened? But I did not. I just took a really, really deep breath and said, okay, let's do it. I sat down, took my time to get into the character, and everyone just did it. But, oh my God. So have you ever experienced anything like that?
Something similar, yeah. And again, you guys did the right thing. It's better to be safe than sorry. And this is one of the things on set as a director and a producer, that you have to think quick, because shit always goes wrong. No matter what, something is going to go wrong. I don't care what set you're on, where, and there's always that time where you have to make a split-second decision. Like, okay, are we going to have this, this close-up, or can we scratch it and just do a medium and keep it moving because we only have 15 minutes left with this light? Those decisions happen all the time, or because you only have 30 minutes left at this location, or because there's always a because, right? Especially in independent filmmaking, we don't have all the time in the world, all the money in the world, all the resources. So you have to make those decisions, and thank God that they decided to shoot it again instead of saying, well, maybe we can, recover that footage, because imagine if you couldn't.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I know we're moving forward a little bit, but you've seen the footage in the editing. Have you seen the footage yet?
I've seen just a little bit this and that. But,
okay.
But where I'm at right now is I'm looking for an editor. So okay. Yeah, I haven't watched it from the beginning till the end, and I'm not even sure if I really want to kind of watch it all. I haven't. I have it right here, but
you don't need to. The director doesn't have the footage? I'm just curious.
There are like 3 copies of the footage.
What did you guys shoot on?
We used Blackmagic, the camera.
Excellent. Kristi, thank you so much for walking us through this entire process of getting your team together, of the mishaps that happened on set and how you guys overcame them, and your first AD being fired the night before. Oh my gosh. Whew, I'm nervous just thinking about it. Like, seriously. Okay, so moving forward, what questions do you have? What are your concerns? What can we discuss?
So, right now, I'm looking for the editor, and what would be your advice for me for picking the editor? You know how some decisions you make based on your gut, and then there are decisions you make because of the budget and so on. And I feel like an editor is another key person, and it's a very technical position. So what should I ask from an editor when I'm interviewing, and what should I keep in mind? And like,
here are my thoughts on this, and everybody's going to think a little bit differently. If you have an editor that went to film school or has edited, the thing is, if you know how to edit, you know how to cut, right? What you learn is how to use Avid, how to use Adobe, whatever the software is. Any editor can cut, right? That's just pushing buttons, and it's more than pushing buttons. It's aligning a whole bunch of things. But if you're an editor, you know how to cut, right? That's the job. What you want to find is an editor that has a way of telling story, that understands story, and that loves your script. That is key. You don't want someone to just read it and go, yeah, I'd like to edit this. You want someone that reads it and like, yes. And you can talk about like, why do you want to cut it? With some, like, what do you see for this project? Like, how would you envision it? You know, ask them any kind of questions like this. You want them to really, really love your film. Because at the end of the day, whether it's a new editor that's out of film school, they'll know how to cut and they're going to be hungry and excited for the opportunity, right? But then a more seasoned editor, you still want to find someone that's excited about the story. Maybe not as excited to edit, but still loves the story. My first editor that I worked with, he was a very experienced editor. And the reason I was able to get him for so cheap on my first short film, because I had hardly any budget, is because he connected with the story, right? My first film had something to do about a white woman and a black man. He is a white man married to a black woman, so it resonated with him. He was like, yes, I'm going to cut this. So because he was able to connect with it, he was willing to work on it for much cheaper, right? My second editor on my second short film also connected with the material. And I've got to tell you, I've lucked out. And I think for me, in my experience, that has been the thing. You want to find someone to connect with it. My last editor is a new editor, so he knows how to cut, and he might not be as experienced. This is actually his first feature film, but he also worked, I have two editors on this, but in the large scheme of things, he ended up cutting most of the film. And again, it's because he connected with the material and really, really was dying to cut a feature. So with him, I had the desire, he had the desire and wanting to work on this kind of project. Where the one before maybe didn't have as much desire to edit, but really connected with the material. So I feel like one of those things has to be there, if not all three. Because at the end of the day, an editor knows how to cut. So what you're looking for is not so much that, in my opinion. It's those extra things. Kind of like you said with your crew. You said your crew, you were blown away at how hard they worked. That's what you want.
Okay. And so what do? You give them like a timeline, or like, I even don't know, like, what should I tell them time-wise? Like, what is like, would be like a feasible thing to do for a 10-minute short film? Like, I'd love to submit it to the Tribeca Film Festival, and the latest deadline is December 1st. So
one of the first...
time is ticking, but I know people who've edited within 3 days, and then I know people who do it forever. So.
No, and that's a very great question. One of my first producers, and I've worked with her on every project since, told me about the production triangle. I think you can have something cheap, but it might not be as good, but you might get it done fast, right? You can get something, if you get something really cheap, I'm totally botching this, but basically what she said, if you're paying someone hardly any money, but they're really good, they might not have as much time to commit to the project because they're not really making a lot of money doing it, but they will do it and they will get it done. It just might take longer. If you have a bunch of cash that you can throw at someone to say, get this done now, you can get it good, fast, and fast, but it won't be cheap. It could take a long time and you get it, really good, but it's not going to get done fast. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
I've had no budget in post, barely, so my editing has taken a long time because I haven't had the funding to pay them properly, so they're doing it as they can. So I know for myself, if I want this done and I want it done good, it's just going to take some time. Had I had the money, then I could make it complete it quicker, because if you're paying that person, that's all they're going to focus on, right? So if you have a bigger budget and you say, okay, I want this done in 5-10 days, That's doable, but you have to pay them because that's all they're going to focus on. Editing is very tedious. It's very time consuming. It's very difficult, right? So for someone to do it fast, you're going to have to pay them.
And for a short film, is 2 months fast, or?
I think a month is fair. A month to 2 months tops is definitely fair. My first short film, that was a 20-minute. I think we spent maybe 2 months on that.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't working every day because, again, I barely had a budget.
Mm-hmm. And the editor works closely with a director, right?
Yes, very closely with the director. Very closely. Very closely. If I were you, and because you're in it, I would let your director and the editor work together, and maybe you come in only after a first assembly or a rough cut. I don't think you need to be in there during the process because you're in it. It's kind of tough to watch yourself.
Right, and that's also one of the reasons why I haven't watched the footage. Like,
yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Watch it after a first assembly or a first cut. So what I want you to do, Kristi, to find your editor, start with referrals. Any director that you know, any screenwriter that you know, any other producers that you know, get some referrals, and then from there make a posting on Mandy. Be very transparent when you make your posting. I have this many pages, or this much footage I shot on this camera. That's going to be very important to the editor because that's going to tell them what their workflow is like, right? If you're shooting on 4K, 6K film, it's the process can be quite brutal as opposed to just using P2 cards from a Canon or what have you. So you say what you shot on, how long you'd like the film to be, and how much money you have. Just be honest and see who responds.
Okay.
You will be surprised.
I know you said that last time too, and I was surprised.
It's amazing how much talent is out there. It's amazing how many people just want the opportunity to work on something good. And your story, from what you've told me, sounds incredible. And people really want to cut narrative. There are so many editors out there that work on music videos, that work on commercials, which is great. And they make a lot of money doing that, but there are editors that do that and want the opportunity to just work on a really lovely story, a narrative. Tons of editors. So you will be surprised. Just be upfront. This is what I have. I'm looking to get it done by this date, and this is how much money I can pay you. And just be upfront. I'm sorry, I wish I could pay more, but this is what I have. See what you get.
Is there also some kind of a platform where I could just cruise around, or so what I've been doing so far, I've been contacting people through referrals.
Great.
I've also just researched films that I like, and then I log on to IMDb and check out who's their editor, and just emailing people without knowing them.
That's a wonderful idea and really smart too. And especially if there's certain film festivals that you want to hit, that might be a great thing to do. Look at the short film winners last year at Tribeca, see who won those short films, and find them on IMDb and contact those editors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because in that way they have experience of cutting something that got into a top tier festival.
Right.
But I don't want you to feel like you have to have someone like that. Again, you can find someone that's equally as talented, but that just simply wants the opportunity. So another thing, and this is what I did when I hired my composer, you can meet them on Mandy and do like this, have a Skype session with them if they're in another city or what have you. I'm sure your director is going to want to work with them side by side. So definitely talk to your director to see what she wants to do as well. Does she have any referrals or any ideas about who she wants to cut?
She had someone in mind, but he's not available right now. So
okay.
Yes, there was someone very specific that she wanted to work, and he's just not available right now. And
honestly,
he recommended someone else. So
all right. Honestly, it's the most important thing is for your director to really connect with this editor. It's a very close relationship, and it's a very specific relationship. So even if you don't maybe love them, but you trust them, it's crucial that your director really has a great feeling about the editor.
Mm-hmm. You know, one editor asked me, like, would you like to sit with me while editing? So is that like common, or, I mean, everything's so viral nowadays. What does that even mean?
Yeah, everyone's a little bit different. Like with my film that we just finished, I sat with my editors every single time we had a session. I sat there. There were 8-hour days, 12-hour days. We sat together. My second short film, The Untimely Concurrence, my editor worked a little bit differently. He would just put something together and then send it to me. Put something together, I would give notes and then send it to me. So everyone's a little bit different. Some editors just want to get the information and they just want to go into the studio and just do their thing, right? While others really love the collaboration between themselves and the director. So again, this is really a question for your director. Your director might want to sit with the editor, or your director might say, you know what, here's my notes, go do your thing, send me a first assembly.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's good to know, because I wasn't sure what does that even mean.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I think just wait until your director has a first assembly or a first rough cut, maybe a first, yeah. Then you can obviously, if you trust your director, I'm sure she will create something amazing with the editor. But obviously, as a producer, you would have last say. Is there something that you just absolutely don't want? Of course, it's up to you. You tell the director, look, I don't want this shot, or I don't want that take, what have you, you know? Did you have a script supervisor?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. So,
is that one of the key persons that I should have had?
It just makes the editing process easier, you know what I mean? But, only because what a lot of scripties will do, but you know what? Every editor's different.
Like, you know, yes, our writer stepped in as a script supervisor. Yes.
A script supervisor will take a log of every take, and they will circle or mark the best take. So then when you go to the editing bay, the editor is going to know which take is the best instead of watching all 5, 6, 7, however many takes. However, I know for me with my first editor, I gave him the script supervisor log. He literally took it and just threw it. He didn't want to see what they thought was the best. He wanted to watch all the footage. Great. Every editor is going to be a little bit different. Some are going to say, I want just the best takes. Okay, let's start cutting. Others want to watch everything.
Right, and I mean, knowing my group, I'm sure that we're looking for someone who has a vision as well, and we don't want someone who would do just line by line. It's just that you want the editor to bring on the table, you know, his or her personality as well, I guess, and expertise, right?
That is a thing that we know as filmmakers. The final draft, or as screenwriters, I should say, the final draft of any script happens in the editing room.
Okay. All right. Oh my God, that's such a big decision.
Huge. Take your time with it. Make sure that the director feels confident, feels great about this editor. Make sure you see their work. But if they're students and maybe don't have a lot of, you know, footage to share, just really talk with them. Talk with them, you know. See why they love your script, you know. Don't send your script out, though, until you have like maybe 5, 6 editors that you want to choose from. Then send the script. Just start with what it's about, the synopsis, the story, what it was shot on, 10 minutes, and you want it done by this time, and this is the money. Once you get those responses and you find people that are interested, then send them the script. After that, just say, I want to make sure that you love the story. Then you pick from there. You don't need to send your script out to 50 editors.
Okay. I think I have a good plan now set.
Okay, so we're going to start with referrals, and then we're going to do a posting on Mandy and just be transparent and see what what you can get. Again, there are people out there, and you're in New York City, so you have Columbia Film School. You have such a rich film community that has a lot of film students that are dying to work on something, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this city is packed with talent, so It's just making the choice that feels right to the team.
Yeah, but your director, this is going to be a key decision for your director. This is like the next biggest, the final biggest choice. I mean, it's a huge choice. It really is. It really is. So take your time with it and make sure that your director loves, you just can't wait to work with this person. Having said that, though, stay open. There's something that I wrote here that you said earlier about your first AD. You said red flags. Same thing here. Same thing here. I made this mistake once where I hired an editor, and just the way he spoke about it, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but in my gut, it felt kind of weird. So we started cutting, and I said, okay, I only want this to be 15 minutes. That's what I thought I wanted, right? But in order to cut it to only be 15 minutes, the story didn't make sense. So he went ahead and just cut it, and so much was missed. Nothing made sense. And he said, well, you wanted it to be 15 minutes. Yeah, and again, Kristi, this is why I say story. The person has to understand story, because an editor that was more, interested in telling a good story would come back to you and say, look, I know you only wanted it to be 15 minutes, but I'm having a difficult time getting it down to 15 minutes and still including all of these plot points, still including all of these transitions. I can't get it in 15 minutes. That's what someone should have said, right? And if they don't, then fire them. And that's what I did with that editor. I fired him. I had to.
Ooh, okay.
It can happen there too, which is why, again, a very crucial role. Any red flags, listen to those. Something doesn't feel right in your gut. A lot of being an artist, a producer, an actor, director is our gut. Those instincts, listen to them. Those red flags, look at them. Listen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like the AD incident was a good way to learn.
And now you know. And now you know, even if it's the best, even if it comes from the best recommendation ever, if there's a weird feeling, if something doesn't sit right with you, it doesn't matter. It's your project. You have to feel strong about your team.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind for sure.
So next step is finding an editor. And are you cool with, do you have a budget for an editor? Is this something that you're going to be fundraising? What's your plan?
I will be fundraising, because the initial budget I had in mind for producing the film, I think that I underestimated how expensive filmmaking can be, and especially renting equipment. And so my idea was that I'm gonna produce this film within $6,000, and I do believe that you can make a film with $6,000 or with no money nowadays. But at the same time, I had to make a decision as a producer. Either I'm going to cut some corners or push myself. So I would find some extra funding. Maybe I'm, if I'm going to find some extra funding. And I think that considering our team's goal, and that we ended up shooting for 3 days, and we had around 35 people, I just decided to push myself, and now I'm going to launch a crowdfunding campaign to raise more funding for post-production, because that's another surprise that it can end up being quite expensive, and everything costs money. And building a website, marketing, editing, coloring, sound, all of it. So, and I think that was actually the hardest thing for me as a producer, to stick to the funding.
Some people will agree with this, some people will not. There are editors that only edit, and that's all they do. And that's all they want to do. My first editor was this such editor. So I had him edit, then I took it to somebody else to color correct. I took it to somebody else to do sound. My second editor, DJ Singh, who was amazing, color corrected and did sound and edited. So I didn't have to get a color correction. I didn't have to get a sound designer. With this film, my editor only edits, but my assistant editor, who ended up being my main editor, also does sound. but I did take it to somebody else to color correct. So that's something that you want to think about as well. Again, if someone's gone to film school and they've learned how to color correct and they just want the opportunity, you don't need to pay $5,000, $10,000 for color correcting. You can get something much, much less. Again, someone that has a talent, has the skills, but just wants the opportunity. There are so many people like that. So don't think post-production needs to cost, $10,000. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's a 10-minute short.
Right. Okay. I guess there are just, since I worked so hard toward everything, then it's the last push, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it's kind of like, I do not want to cut the corners. I want to have someone really, really great. Preferably someone experienced, but at the same time, I have to keep in mind my budget. And I just can't keep endlessly raising it. And, I could not afford someone with, that costs $10,000. There's no way.
Right. I
can pull off a few $1,000s, but not 10,000 or even 5,000 probably. So it just, I think, again, budgeting has been the hardest thing to tackle. And I think that I've learned a big deal. And there were definitely moments when I said, no, we can't do that. And we can't have all of that equipment. And but at the same time, there were moments when I said, yes, let's have the dolly. And because of the second day's incident, it may even happen that we won't have that, footage. So again, a great lesson to learn.
Exactly.
But you don't know about all of those things when you just don't know about all of those things when you're studying doing it first time. It just you learn, and I guess that's how you become a seasoned producer, right?
In my opinion, that's the best way. You learn by just doing it. Because you know what? No matter what set or how much experience you have producing, every project is different. Every project you're going to come up against something that you've never had happen before. Every project you're going to be working with different people, different camera, different locations. It's always a learning experience. Always. It's never the same. Ever.
And I guess I just can't beat up myself for the so-called mistakes that I made while producing. But I just try to embrace and tell myself that now I know, and I'm so happy that I've had you, as a mentor in this process, because I can only imagine what other mistakes I would have made. So it's been so helpful. So,
Kristi, you produced your first project. Congratulations. This is huge. And now now you understand, yeah, this is huge.
Yeah.
Next time, when we talk, I want to talk about post-production. I know you have this Tribeca deadline that you're trying to work towards. What I will say, definitely work towards it, but I don't want you to rush and not get the quality that you want, right? You don't want to do that. Editing is one of these things where, honestly, it's never going to feel like it's done. You can tinker and adjust. You can edit forever. I'm glad you have a deadline, because then now you're going to have to say, okay, by this date, we have to be done. But if it's not feeling great, you're not done.
Okay.
You work so hard, your team has, everybody. When you see that final cut, you want to be saying, yes, this is it. And of course, after, there's always going to be we can shrink it. That's fine. The little things don't even worry about, but the overall feeling. And when you're looking at it with your director, just imagine it being in a theater with an audience. Is this working? Is this working? Are people being affected? You can feel it when you watch. You'll know. You'll know. And your director will know.
Yeah.
When are you going to start looking, or what does the process look like right now?
Tomorrow I'll just dive in. yeah, I'll just keep going. I'm just so, inspired and full of energy that I just dive in and see how it goes. What number should I think about when it comes to editors?
People have paid nothing for an editor. People have paid thousands for an editor. It just really depends. I wish I could just say this is how much, but usually what people do is a percentage of the budget. So let's say, your budget was $10,000. Some producers will say, okay, you will get paid 10% of the budget, 20% of the budget, but I believe it's usually 10, but it's usually a percentage of the budget.
Because right now, like, the few editors that I've contacted, they've all said, like, that they don't work for that low pay and asking way more than I had in mind. But
how much are they asking? I'm just curious about the numbers you've run into so far.
Said minimum 3,000. And I mean, I know that he's really, really excellent and very, very experienced. So
right,
that's probably the reason. But it never hurts to ask, right?
It doesn't hurt to ask. And this is just the last point I want to bring. Again, if someone really connects with a script, that's what happened to me with my first editor. He was a very experienced editor. He had no business cutting my film for what I paid him. But because he connected with the material, he did it. So there are people out there that will make that sacrifice because they really connect with your material. Also, you might find someone that's really experienced but have maybe just been in the land of music videos and commercials and really just want to cut a narrative that would normally charge way more. But again, because they connect with the story, might say, you know what, I will lower my rate for this project.
Okay.
The people are out there.
Yeah, I'm just going to post an ad to Mandy and then reach out to all my friends and interested people that I know, ask for referrals, and then just see what I end up with. And
it might be interesting. It might be interesting to see if there are any like independent Estonian films out there. Anything that you can find. Maybe you can find an Estonian editor. Not that you need to have one, but it might be interesting and they might be connected to you because of who you are and if they've had a lot of experience. You never know. See if you can find some Estonian films that have maybe been in American film festivals and find them on IMDb and see if you can reach out to those editors. Just a thought. You never know.
It's a great thought. I mean, I've actually even worked in the past on Estonian Oscar campaigns. So some of the films that made it here. So that's a great idea. Yeah, definitely. Why not?
All we can do is ask. We don't know until we ask, until we try, until we produce.
Right.
I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so excited for you. This next stage is a process, just like all of it. But like you said in the beginning, pre-production, you felt like you had, more time to make decisions, and it wasn't so fast-paced. And then production, it's like all the decisions right away, no time to waste, keep moving. Now you're in post. There's a saying, post is where projects go to die. And here's one of the things, and I will tell you this, momentum can stop sometimes at this point. I don't think that's going to happen with you. So keep going. You said you're doing something tomorrow? Tomorrow. Because it's very easy to just kind of lose. Because now it's just you and the director. That's it. The team's gone. It's just you and the director. So you, as a producer, you have to be the driving force now. You have to drive every single step, from finding the editor to keeping tabs, not tabs on the director, but really staying in communication. All of that. This is now your machine you're now driving for the rest of the stage.
Okay.
Really important, because it's easy to lose momentum. It really is. But you won't. You won't, because I'm going to be harassing you.
Yeah, I'm a very dedicated student.
You are.
So I'm going to keep going. And it's so exciting. I can't wait to see on big screen.
I'm so excited for you. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, I just want to acknowledge you, Kristi, for just having the courage, for having the guts to just go for it, mistakes and all. It sounds like you learned, you had an amazing experience, and you're just pushing forward. You're continuing on. Congratulations, Indie Film Tribe. Thank you so much for listening, for indulging us in this sort of experiment, and we'll definitely have Kristi back on as soon as she finishes post-production. So yeah, thank you, Tribe, so much for hanging out with Kristi and I today. Until next time, bye.
Bye.